I'm Terry Rossi, and in this episode of the IT Provider Network podcast, I want to share with you some of the feedback I've received on the show, as well as some of my opinions on the questions you've sent in. We're going to talk about getting started in the business, sales compensation, contracts, and more.
Welcome to the IT Provider Network. Are you a managed service entrepreneur wanting to take your business to the next level? Do you excel in IT but feel your business management could be better? Join Terry Rossi, where every episode he shares the skills, tips, and tricks that helped him to build a successful worldwide business.
Crazy week for me this week. It was Thanksgiving week in the U.S., which means my company was closed Thursday and Friday. But it also means that many of our customers were closed too, so we had a bunch of projects we had to get done during the downtime. I myself had two large-scale data movement projects to do. One was a multi-location, what they call lift and shift to the cloud for a tier 1 automotive manufacturer. And the other one was a big series of database dumps and loads. So dumping the databases down to ASCII data and then back creating them again. So that was for an over-the-counter pharmaceutical manufacturer. Since we do a lot of work with manufacturers, when they have downtime, it means we have projects. And that's something you want to think about too, especially if you're looking for a vertical when you're just starting out. So I started all my work on Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving, and I just finished up at Sunday night at about 8:30. To make matters worse, I'm sick as a dog. I have the worst type of illness known to man, the man cold. It's misunderstood by most females, but the man cold is totally debilitating. I'm just kidding. I suffered through, but it wasn't easy. I hope everyone in the U.S. had a great holiday and enjoyed a little downtime and that you're ready to hit it hard this week. Remember, there's only 34 more days to kick it in the rear end for 2017, and then the year's over. Over. 2018, here we come. So my first couple questions today came from a gentleman named Steve in Minnesota. The first one is, what advice would you give someone who is working a full-time IT job who's looking to break away and start his own MSP? So a couple of things come to mind right away, Steve. The first is to understand that it's a big risk. According to Bloomberg, 8 out of every 10 entrepreneurs who start a business fail within the first 18 months. So that's a pretty big whopping 80% crash and burn rate. Not great odds, but it doesn't mean you can't beat those odds. You're starting as a solopreneur with a skill set. Your skill set in IT is pretty valuable. The unemployment rate for IT people is, less than 1%. So it's pretty easy to take the risk. If you have a little bit of a financial backing, you can afford to be without money for a little while. Take the risk, do it. And if you really have the chops and somehow you still fail, you should be able to get a job again without a problem. So if you do decide to bust out and look for your own way, I suggest you secure a key client. That client could be kind of like your sugar daddy. If you work for an IT provider now, don't even think about poaching their clients. That bad karma will haunt you forever. But go out and find one on your own. This could be a friend of a friend or a friend of your parents or a friend of, your spouses, whoever. Find someone that could use your services that's willing to sponsor you, maybe for a little less money than you would charge ideally, but they'll get you going, and ideally they'll be able to cover your initial bills, keep food on your table. I don't know you, Steve, but chances are you're a techie and you're not going to have any problem with the technical work. But as a techie, you really need to force yourself to do the non-technical work. And that's where I see a lot of guys get in trouble. In particular, you really need to concentrate on sales. You can't launch a successful business sitting in front of your computer. You need to force yourself out. You need to meet people. You need to ask for a business. You need to give away some services to prove your worth, but then ask those people to pay for those services. Ask for the business. You got to be able to close a deal to be in business by yourself. Nobody's going to magically make that revenue appear for you. So making sales and marketing, make that a consistent part of your work week. Schedule it, and then execute on it. Make sure you're doing it, sales and marketing. If you're going to buy tools like RMMs and PSAs, etc., I suggest you go for the cloud-based monthly services. Don't buy on-premise software. Too expensive if you're just starting out. Pay the monthly fee. Yes, you'll pay it forever, but you won't have any maintenance. You won't have any servers to deal with. You won't have anything to deal with other than that monthly payment. I think if you were to go for a ConnectWise Manage, you can get it in as little as a 2-user deal. So you pay for 2 users and you're all set. Heck, I don't even know if I would buy any tools. Maybe use a master MSP, somebody like Continuum or Collaborance. Those two guys seem to be really hitting the market hard. Continuum is an offshoot of the old Zenith company, I guess, going way back. And Collaborance is a new master MSP that was put together by the folks at Great American Financial. So check those two guys out. I'll put links to all these services in the show notes at the itprovidernetwork.com/episode 24. And lastly, if you're going to break out on your own, Steve, don't forget about your silent partner, Uncle Sam. I've seen many solopreneurs think that if they bill $100, that's a $100 profit. Well, that's not really true. You have another hungry mouth to feed, the mouth of the U.S. government or whatever government exists in the country you live in. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you're in the U.S., and I think if you would put away about 30% of your revenues, you should be in decent shape when it comes to pay the tax man. Talk to somebody that's way smarter than me that'll find out what he or she thinks you should put away. There's way too much that goes into starting a business to address in this question and answer episode of the IT Provider Network, but let me give you a couple more things to think about. Your corporate structure. Make sure you start an LLC or subchapter S corporation if you're in the U.S. Again, I'm not sure the structures in other parts of the world, but make sure you have some entity to quasi-protect yourself. Make sure you get professional liability insurance, or E&O insurance as it's called. E&O stands for errors and omissions. Make sure you have this to protect yourself. At the end of this episode, I'll show you a way you can save some money on this insurance and take advantage of a great deal. Thirdly, and this is by no means complete, get some contracts in place. These contracts help set the ground rules for whoever you're doing business with. These could be with your employees, with your vendors or partners, and most importantly, with your customers. So get some contracts in place. And that brings me to Steve's second question. Is there a resource to obtain general MSP contract forms? There is some resources for that, Steve. There's some books, some courses, and even some resources for contracts. So the books that I would recommend, and some of these are a little old, but they're kind of classics, and especially if you're starting out, they'll give you a good overview of what's involved in the business. First one is called Service Agreements for SMB Consultants, a quick start guide for managed services. This is by Carl Palachek, and he's been around in the SMB consulting space forever. You can find that on Amazon, and I have a link to that in the show notes. The second book is a guide to managed services, also a little bit dated, but it includes 18 templates and a CD in it with some pre-recorded webinars, so that might be helpful. And third, the book Information Technology Consulting and Other Professional Service Agreements, line by line. That sounds like a real page turner, but it's written by a lawyer, and it'll probably help you really understand the agreements you're creating, writing, or signing. The last book recommendation I want to recommend is called The Tech Contracts Handbook, Cloud Computing Agreements, Software Licenses, and Other IT Contracts for Lawyers and Business People. So this is a how-to guide on drafting and negotiating IT agreements. Supposedly written in simple English. I've not read it, but I know it is the number one recommended book by the Bar Association in the United States for this type of agreement. So you might want to check that out. If you'd rather just purchase a product, I know Robin Robbins sells the Ultimate MSP Contract Kit. Robin couples some agreement templates written by a lawyer, Greg Phillips, along with his presentation of the agreements. So you get a whole bunch of agreement templates. You get Greg explaining them to you line by line, and then you get a forum that you can interact with other people that have bought the product. The product runs around $600, so it's definitely the most expensive recommendation I can give, but it's actually the only one I can actually vouch for. We use the agreements in this kit as a framework for our agreements, and now they're the basis of all our managed services and cloud agreements. If you want to purchase a product, Robin sells the ultimate MSP contract kit. Robin couples agreement templates written by a lawyer, Greg Phillips, along with his pre-recorded webinars and a group chat function. So you have templates and documents, you have the advice of a lawyer pre-recorded, and then you have a group discussion where you can discuss with other people that have purchased the product changes that you think are valid or whatever for the product. The product runs around $600, so it's definitely the most expensive recommendation, but it's the only one that I can vouch for. We use this agreement framework from this kit as the basis of all our managed services and cloud agreements. Whatever you do and however you come up with your agreements, please have an IP or a technology lawyer. Please have an IP or a technology lawyer review them. I can recommend Thomas Stanton of Stanton IP Law. Thomas, I met about 2 months ago at the Marketopia For You to Grow conference. Thomas was previously an MSP, then decided to go back to law school and get his law degree. So Thomas is a great contact for this type of work. He will review or create MSP agreements from scratch. He also works with cloud contracts, software, licenses, and vendor agreements. So you can reach Thomas at stantoniplaw.com. And I put a link to that in the show notes. Please tell him you heard about him from me. If you do talk to him, he's a real good guy. I enjoyed speaking with him. So, Steve, I hope this helps you out and good luck. Keep me in the loop if you break out on your own. I'll be curious to know how you're making out, how you landed your first contract, and how you're staffing up your company as you grow. Best of luck. The next question today is from Jonathan in Connecticut. And Jonathan's question is about compensating a sales force. So here's Jonathan's question. We are trying to remodel our sales compensation plan. Our current plan is too cumbersome to manage. Do you have any recommendations on the outline of a plan that's been successful for you? So I asked Jonathan about his sales department. He gave me the following additional information. We have 3 salespeople. They are each in charge of making their own cold calls, drop-ins, sales presentations, and getting signatures on agreements. Once the sale is closed, they have limited responsibilities unless there is a collection issue or an expansion issue. So that was great. That was really what I needed to know. These guys, I would classify them as hunters. They're out there doing business development, bringing in new deals. Once the deal is signed and the customer is onboarded, they're pretty much out of the program. Helpful to know. So Jonathan, this is a topic I often struggle with. Comp plans can get complex easily, and even if they're simple, they still can be difficult to design a plan that accomplishes what the company needs. So taking your company, for example, your salesmen are essentially hunters. They're responsible for everything up to the onboarding. Then they're basically out of the picture. So what should they be compensated for? Well, the easy answer is landing new managed services clients, but it's a little more complex than that. They need to land new managed services clients that are first and foremost profitable. They need to sell at the right price, sell at the right profit margin. They need to land new managed services clients that are a good fit for your organization. You know, since these salespeople are not involved in account management, they are essentially not in the picture after the customer is onboarded. You really need to make sure that the deals they land are good deals from good clients that can benefit from the services you sell and pay your bills. The salesperson also needs to sell what you actually deliver. Again, because they're not involved post-sale, if the expectations set by the salesperson are not the same as the reality delivered by your service team, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of churn. Usually this happens after you've paid out the commission. In our company, we're moving to a hunter-farmer type of sales structure where we'll hand off the client from the outside salesperson to the account manager after they're onboarded. So I feel you on that. I don't have this structure yet, but we're actively seeking to flesh it out with new team members. I can tell you that over the last 10 years, we've had an inside-outside model where our inside salesperson was dialing for new appointments and our outside salesperson was responsible for everything else. The problem with this model is that when you grow, the outside salesperson, the guy that's landing all the deals and doing all the account management, has too much to do. He could easily spend the bulk of his time churning out quotes for existing clients and therefore failing to bring in new MSP clients and really new MSP clients is the heart of your business. You need to make sure you're constantly working to consistently bring them in. So back to the sales comp plan. Here's what we've done in the past. And let me just say that I think it's a little bit rich. We did this back in 2008 and we had nothing to go by. So we just kind of took a stab in the dark. But I'll also tell you that it's worked for the last 10 years. We've made a lot of money. Our salesman has made a lot of money, and everybody's happy. So I think it's not a bad place to start, although I might tune the numbers down a little. So in addition to a good base salary and full benefits, we paid out the following commission. So we paid out 20% of all new managed services contracts. So 20% of the first year contract value. And we paid that out over the first 3 months of the contract. So let me give you an example. If we land a $5,000 a month contract for 3 years, we pay out 3 equal payments of $4,000 for a total of $12,000 in commission. This is based on the annual contract value, we call it the ACV, of $60,000 and the total contract value of $180,000. So based on the annual contract value of $60,000, we pay out 20%, which is $12,000, and we pay that out over 3 months, $4,000 a month. So this is always based on the quoted contract. It doesn't adjust as the client's bill go up or down. Typically, they don't go down, though. They only go up. And we pay it out over 3 months so we don't create a cash flow problem. That's the biggest hunk of commission, 20% on managed services agreements. The next level of commission we pay is 10% on any projects. So this is how we compensate for one-time projects, and it's based on the quoted project amount again. It's looked at to be on time and on budget, and we really don't adjust commissions based on whether a project went over or under, but we certainly look at it when we quote the next one to make sure we're in the ballpark and not losing money. And then the last level of commission is 5% on hardware and software sales. So provided we have a minimum amount of profit in the sale, and sometimes we don't with hardware, we pay out 5% on the stuff we resell. This is all commission that goes to the outside salesperson. Because remember, in my company today, he's doing all the work other than the telemarketing. So this was the plan for him. To compensate for the inside salesperson or the telemarketer, we simply paid him 10% of the outside salesperson's commission. So if the outside salesperson made $4,000, the inside salesperson made $400. So kind of all boats rise together. Everybody's happy. Everyone's working for the common goal. Now, going forward, the outside salesperson, I think we're going to pay less of a percentage. He or she will be able to take advantage of big investments we've made in the process. You know, back in 2008, we had to all figure this out. Now we got it pretty well figured out. So we have a process in place. We have content marketing. We have digital marketing. In addition, that salesperson will not be responsible for account management. So he'll strictly be out there doing business development, acting as a hunter. The account manager role that we're going to hire for will be responsible for meeting our revenue goals. And that's where that 10% and 10% and 5% come in. We have revenue goals based on our MRR of 40% of the MRR we expect to sell in projects, and 20% of the MRR we expect to sell in hardware and software. The sales manager will also get a little taste of what his team provides to the company, but we haven't devised that scheme yet. So one other thing about sales comp plans, Jonathan, it's easy to give more if you haven't made a comp plan rich enough. In other words, it's easy to give someone an increase in their commission, but it's quite difficult to reduce commission amounts, especially if you have a good performing salesperson, but you just made your plan too rich. So think about that. Get away with the smallest amount of commission you can get away with. Although I like a good portion, 30-40% of the comp to be variable. Be careful you're not giving away the farm, because it's really hard to take it back afterwards. Remember, too, that the most important thing is bringing in new managed services clients. Unless you have new clients flowing into your company, you'll never meet those project and hardware software revenue goals. You'll never be able to consistently sell 40% of an MRR bill in projects to a customer that's been there year after year after year. Think about it. You refresh their hardware 1 year, you move them to the cloud 1 year. Well, then what? They're good for 3 or 4 years. So you need new blood moving in to be able to help meet those goals. So Jonathan, I hope this helps. I also bought 2 books on Amazon when I was working on our comp plan. They dive into sales compensation really deep. You might want to check them out. The first one is the complete guide to Salesforce incentive compensation, how to design and implement plans that work. And the second one was compensating the Salesforce, a practical guide to designing winning sales reward programs. I put both of the links to these in the show notes at the itprovidernetwork.com/episode 24. The plans in these books, though, Jonathan, I must warn you, they're not simple plans, but they do give you lots to think about and formulas to apply. So good luck, Jonathan. If you're comfortable with it, please share with me your new comp plans. I'd love to share them with the audience. Our next and final question for episode 24 is from Fred in Ontario. Here's what Fred wrote. Your show has really opened my eyes to the big blue sea that is the MSP space. I've really enjoyed all the business development and management content. I love learning about how I will work on the business rather than working in the business. Keep up the great work. There seems to be a plethora of services a company could provide, from end-user device management to backups to cloud infrastructure hosting. Wondering if you had any way to categorize these. Where does a 1 to 5 person start? Which services are better for mature providers? Which services provide a solid foundation for recurring revenues versus ones that are lost leaders? So great question, Fred, but smarter people than I are thinking about this subject of how to categorize and what to tackle first. The Cliff Notes version of what they're thinking about is concentrate on what you're really good at and also what you're passionate about. I referenced Arnie Bellini's keynote. Arnie is the CEO of ConnectWise in episode 23 of the IT Provider Network podcast. I recommend you listen to episode 23 of the podcast and click on the link to Arnie's keynote in YouTube. He does a really good job of explaining the concept behind technology squares and being able to actually master those squares and becoming the dominant force in your geographical area for that service that you provide. So check it out. You can find the podcast and the YouTube link at the itprovidernetwork.com/ITNation2017. Regarding your question on which services are more suitable for mature providers, we used to have a spreadsheet we'd make these types of decisions on. We called it the death of picks spreadsheet. It was the 90s version of the Risk Masker, if you ever saw that Ben Stiller movie, Along Came Polly. Fred, so what I think you should avoid until your company is more stable is anything that can bring you down. I would avoid things you don't fully understand. For example, don't take on a Linux client if you're a Windows guy. Don't take on a Mac client if you're a Windows guy. Don't say you can implement SAP if you're Googling to find out what SAP stands for. Just stick with the tried and true stuff till you get going. Build up a recurring revenue base and then branch out to things that are a little bit more subjective. Subjective work, I really don't like. I've almost moved totally away from it. Anything where it's not 100% clear what we're offering and what the expected deliverable is. Things like website design, custom software, SEO, PPC services. Right now, we're not doing any of that. We're trying not to do any of that anyway. Anything that the customer might have a valid reason not to pay you, right? And they might have a valid reason. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe there's holes in the spec, whatever. They either have a valid reason or they don't have a valid reason. They just don't like what you did, even though you did exactly what they asked you to do. I would stay away from those. They can leave you in a cash crunch if the customer decides not to pay you. So I hope that helps, Fred. Good luck getting ramped up, and thank you for listening and the feedback. Before we wrap up episode 24 of the IT Provider Network, I wanted to thank some people that are inspiring me and helping the show by spreading the word or using our affiliate links. Please, please, please note, the only affiliate links you'll find here for products I either use or I would recommend. I'm not just trying to make a couple bucks here. I'm trying to provide you with some value. So the first is Coinbase. We had 3 new Coinbase users this week. As I'm writing this, Bitcoin has just crossed over $9,500 a coin. On episode 23, it was $7,300. Holy moly. It just keeps going up and up and up. So congratulations and thank you to Andre Downing, Michael Hamilton, and Greg Harris for signing up with new Coinbase accounts. They did that by using my URL, startbuyingcoins.com. Startbuyingcoins.com isn't some crazy multi-level marketing thing. It's just a affiliate link to Coinbase where you can open an account with as little as $100. And when you do, they give you and I both $10 worth of Bitcoin. So real easy. You don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. People think, so $9,500 a coin, I can't afford that. Well, you can buy $100 worth. Doesn't matter. You can buy $50 worth. You can buy $2,000 worth. Doesn't matter. You can also buy Ethereum and Litecoin on Coinbase. Ethereum has also had a great month. It went up about $150 a coin. I think it's trading at about $450. So get involved in it. It's fun. Take some play money. Get on over to Coinbase by going to startbuyingcoins.com and watch your money grow a little bit. It's easy to use, and the coins are going through the roof. It really probably is going to be the next thing to hit us. I also want to thank the vendor community. There's a bunch of vendors in the space that listen to the show, founders and employees alike. I hear from companies like ConnectWise, Marketopia, Reframe Your Clients, ID Agent, many, many more. They've all written me words of encouragement. I appreciate that. And they all have told me that it's helping them get more in the mind of the MSP. One thing I've always noticed is that there seems to be a disconnect between what reality is and what vendors might perceive it as. So hopefully this will help them understand a little bit more what the MSP industry goes through. So I appreciate you listening, vendors, and I appreciate any of the shares you've given me or the free press you've given me or the IT Provider Network. So thanks again for listening. And lastly, I want to thank people for their reviews. I want to thank Jeff Prowse, Josh Reiser, and John Kelsey for your kind reviews. I love seeing new reviews of the podcast. If you have a couple minutes, I'd appreciate you giving me a rating and review. It really does make my day. I get a text message. I get an email every week that tells me what new ratings I have. And when it says I have no new ratings, it's kind of a bummer. So I'd like one. I'd appreciate if you could do it. If you go to the show notes at the itprovidernetwork.com/episode 24, scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's some links down there that'll help you get it done for iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to. So thank you. I also want to offer you a couple great Cyber Monday deals. So there's two deals that were made available to me that I can pass on to you. The first is from the ASCII Group. So if you're looking for professional liability insurance, as I mentioned to Steve at the top of the show, the buying power of ASCII can really help you get coverage at better rates. So you get better buying power, free marketing assistance, purchasing power at places like Tech Data, Cynics, and Ingram Micro, and much more. So check out this deal from ASCII. Sign up for ASCII before January 15th, and they'll give you 2 months free. If you sign up, make sure you let them know that the IT Provider Network podcast referred you, and that's the deal. You can contact Trevor at theascigroup.com. That's Trevor at ascigroup.com for membership information, or you can go right to their website, ascigroup.com. You have to sign up before January 15th to get the 2 months free. So take advantage of that. I've been a member of ASCII for over 5 years, and I find great value in the community and the company. The second offer is from a company called ID Agent, and ID Agent really made a splash on the marketplace this year with their dark web monitoring. So they have dark web monitoring and credit monitoring. And I've talked about these guys a little bit in previous episodes. I use them as a prospecting tool. So I look up X amount of prospects a month and see if they're listed on the dark web. If they are, what better way to try to get an appointment with them than to tell them a password that's exposed on the dark web? So you could do that too. If you sign up for dark web monitoring, or really any product I guess they have, before November 30th, the good folks at ID Agent will add these upgrades to your plan. They'll give you 150 additional live searches. Those live searches are where you can just put in a domain name and it'll tell you if it's hit or not. They'll give you 200 complimentary scans each quarter for domains. They'll give you 1 month free, so the 13th month free. They'll give you free sales empowerment and training sessions in the month of December. And they'll give you free Spotlight ID, which is their credit monitoring, ID and credit monitoring accounts for up to 3-year employees. So free credit monitoring for up to 3-year employees, free sales empowerment and training sessions, 13th month free, 200 complimentary scans, and 150 additional live searches. This is an awesome deal. Take advantage of this deal. Contact them directly. You can contact them at 844-ID-AGENT or by visiting them at idagent.com. I put both the phone number and the URL in the show notes. at the itprovidernetwork.com/episode 24. Be sure to tell them Terry Rossi at the IT Provider Network sent you, and let me know if you take advantage of this offer or any of these offers. I'd love to hear about your experiences with the vendors. I'd love to hear about your experiences with the tools. I'd love to hear how you're making money and moving your company forward. So that's it for episode 24 of the IT Provider Network podcast. I look forward to your questions and comments for the next free coaching episode. Until then, have a great day, and remember, we are IT.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been inspired. Check us out on social media via @ITProviderNet and visit us at www.itprovidernetwork.com for past episodes, show notes, videos, and more. And we hope you'll join Terry next time on the IT Provider Network.